Hi, I'm Brianna Hildebrand, and I play Negasonic Teenage Warhead in Deadpool, and this is the Dave and Creech Show.
This is the Dave and Creech Show, the only podcast where podcaster CJ Creech and actor Dave Sheridan come together to talk all things entertainment with your favorite entertainers. Want to ask our guests a question? Tweet them to @DaveSheridan or @CJCNOV88, and they may be asked to our guests live on the show. We do have to ask you stay seated during the podcast because this ride may get a little bit hilarious. Now here's your hosts, Dave and Creech.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 34 of the Dave and Creech Show. I am Creech, and we are here once again, now for the second time in a row, Mr. Dave Sheridan.
We're making a habit
Welcome
out
back
of this,
again.
Creech.
Yes,
Thank you. I'm so glad to be back. I'm feeling probably the most rested I've felt in a long time, so it's good.
Yeah, and you sound good, especially to have not had a voice a little over 24 hours ago.
It was more like 2 days ago, but yeah. And I didn't have the voice that I didn't have was in the yelling spectrum. And the reason why you and I postponed doing the podcast was just because I just needed to rest it, even to get that part back, even though I wasn't going to be on the podcast yelling. I just needed to rest the voice to get that range back for the filming that I was doing, because there's a lot of yelling in the film. It's a very loud film.
Very true. And also we are now talking mere hours after the first of, I think it's 3 presidential debates, and what a crazy time we're in. We're talking politics again.
This is a political moment.
America, fuck yeah!
Paid for by the people that think America is fucking awesome.
America, fuck yeah!
I'm Dave Sheridan, and I approve this message, I think.
I feel like my brain has completely shut down.
Yeah, I mean, I've been paying a lot of attention to both sides of that race, and so that was just a lot of them repeating a lot of their same talking points from what I saw. They both did a good job of just, honestly, just sort of stating the same stuff that both sides have been stating the whole time in a way. And I heard it on the radio, so I didn't actually see it. Maybe watching it might have been a bit different, but I didn't see it in any way. If the interesting thing is, though, if somebody doesn't pay enough attention to what they're constantly saying, then it might seem like, whoa, like these guys are, saying stuff that I've never heard, but I didn't hear anything new, basically. It's been a lot of the same stuff on both sides. I would say that it seemed to me like, compared to the Republican debates of what I saw Trump and how he sort of dismantled a lot of those players, he certainly laid back and let her talk, Hillary talk. He was polite in that sense that he let her have. And I'm not sure that was in his benefit to let her talk as much as he let her talk. I would probably say, from what I heard, because I only heard something, that I don't think either of them gained any more supporters from the other side, although there's an undecided amount. There are some people that, are independent of the sort of towing the party line, and she may have helped herself a little bit more than he helped herself in that regard. So I would probably say the victory might go to her at the end of the day, because ultimately I think the people that are sort of more undecided maybe just might want to err to somebody that just fits a presidential bill a little bit more than an outsider, and that's what she certainly fits. So.
Oh yeah, and I don't know. Like usually, if I posted quite a bit on Twitter during the debate, and usually I don't get inspired to really tweet stuff out during stuff, but some of, this was just kind of like one of those where just they kept delivering like new quotes or whatever that could be used for entertainment purposes. Like it seems like tonight Trump debuted his new catchphrase. It used to be "you're fired." Now it seems like "I have a property there." Maybe his new catchphrase. And then also I love the part where he was just he kept bringing up Sean Hannity. He's like, "You should call Sean Hannity," and it's like I for a minute there I thought he was thinking maybe he was on like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and he could phone a friend during the debate, or I couldn't quite figure that out.
I do like that, like how he's sort of like these other countries, they're beating us, they're doing all this stuff, and he goes, and I have some great properties over there. It's like well, why don't you have great properties here? I mean, he talked about opening that one hotel, but I think he left the door open on that one. He totally missed that one thing where she talked about nuclear weapons being very dangerous, and it's the biggest threat, and we don't want that to fall in the hands of in the wrong people. And he probably, that was an open door for him to slam the Iran thing a little harder and the ISIS thing a little harder, being like, well, your administration has done nothing but weaken that and help terrorists get closer to having a nuclear bomb. So we will see what happens. I don't know. Honestly, it really is more about drumming up support of not so much changing people's decisions, but sort of rallying the troops of the people that already, I've already taken a side, and because those dividing lines are very wide, and it really comes down to a fundamental of, do you believe big government is, do you believe the government should be involved in the education and helping communities, and everywhere that government is too much, because the fact is that's bureaucracy. So where I stand. I'm going to be frank. I'm an anarchist to a point. I'm a libertarian, probably closer than anything else. But that guy, the governor from Arizona, Gary, I don't even know his name, because he's even washed. 4 years ago when he was running for president, I actually was more behind him, and then he just sort of puttered out, and he didn't really get above 11%. It would have been nice to see him do a little bit better for himself, maybe prepare himself a little better and get himself out there somehow more, figure out a way to maybe utilize social network to build his presence up to getting a 13%, or I think you need 15% to get, he was hovering around 11 to get into the debates, because having a third party represent on a national debate might have been helpful. And it's a shame that the networks that are involved in controlling the debates, which it's all media that controls it, it's a shame that they've kept out another voice, another party from at least being able to cross-check both parties, you know what I mean, and sort of level the playing ground in the sense of getting a little bit some fresh ideas and some new stuff, because ultimately it really comes down to, do you want, do you feel like we need to just pay more, everyone needs to pay more in taxes, and then the government can fix our problems? Or is it less taxes and pull the government back and let the communities and let the parents and let teachers teach and parents parent and let churches be churches, instead of vilifying these type of areas? So it just depends on which way you feel. Because look, I could see other people's point of view is like, well, American parents aren't good enough to be in charge of their own families, or if we leave the schools to fend for themselves, they're not the teachers aren't trained good enough, or they're not, devoted enough unless they get more money, but the way that they've given schools federal assistance is by forcing them to take on this Common Core curriculum, which is taking teaching from the teachers they have. They're not allowed to, my son he was in the second grade last year. He had a teacher that taught for 28 years, and she's a really good teacher, but she wasn't able to follow, they're about their second year into Common Core, and she's had to sort of strip down in a way how she likes to connect to kids and just follow. They don't hand out books anymore. They just give you dittos that every week, based on this federal guideline, these are the dittos that you hand out to the kids. This is what you are teaching the kids. And I believe that, that becomes a robotic situation. I think you have to, every student is different, and teachers and of course, there's some teachers that probably are not, certainly there are teachers that don't have 28 years, and there's teachers that have 4 years of teaching and might not have developed the skills to connect, humanly and quickly pick up on how all kids are different and how to reach each kid, or how to best utilize the 6 hours a day that they have to, get to the kids. But I've been to enough schools now, because moving around like we moved, we've probably been in 4 different schools in 4 different years, and it's definitely the parents are what make a school, not teachers, certainly not the curriculum. There's only 4 times 4 is 16, and it always will be. So that's, if that changed every year, that number, if mathematics and science and all this stuff, the way the world is put together, physics and stuff has changed dramatically every year, then I could see how, like, whoa, we need to get a curriculum that ties all this together. But that's not what changes. What's unique every year are the students, and what the biggest tie that will, who knows the students best but the parents. And so parents need to be involved, into a school system. The schools that I've found were the best that we've been in are the ones that have the greatest amount of parent participation. So hopefully that'll straighten itself out. Because that goes down to, everyone's, the big talking point was the inner cities and how they're troubled and how they're problematic. Well, that goes down to, families being broken up by the government in the first place, by the system. Because that whole Black Lives Matter thing is correct. There is social injustice, but the social injustice is the system. It's the government. The government is the social injustice, and they need to get out of the way and let, I don't want to say it's a black community because there's poor white people, but let's just say poor communities are certainly at the short end of the stick when it comes to governments, because all they're doing is, putting Band-Aids. It's a bureaucracy. They don't really have the capabilities of straightening up what right out the front door, the same way the parents can in the community and the churches and stuff like that. That's where the money should be going to. If there's going to be any money, it should just go straight to local things that let them spend it the way they need to spend it.
I agree, yeah, definitely. And it seemed like they both danced around that question too when they brought up the everything that's happening in Charlotte and Tulsa and everything. Like neither of them committed to any certain answer. They kind of danced around that question. It's sort of like with that whole thing of the police situations, with the way and I would say it's media spotlight, but the media is just reacting to social networks, because when stuff gets posted, when when like cell phone things of incidents get posted immediately and go viral, the media has to take ownership of it, because if they don't, then they're going to lose to, the Facebook Live and Twitter and all that stuff. And that's the last thing CNN and NBC News and Fox News, they don't want to be second fiddle to the users themselves. They don't want to be second fiddle to, and they want to control the information.
I'm not going to say it's misinformation, but the bottom line is this, is that the giant media conglomerates they make their money being in control of information. So the moment something happens, they're going to blow it up twice as much, because that's how, it's like when you lose a couple hands at blackjack, the only way to win back those hands is by doubling up your next bet. So the moment something starts to go a little viral, well, then the media has to then take it and own it and say, now it's ours. You know what I mean? Let's get in front of it. Now we're controlling how this information is being disseminated. And part of that's a good thing, because certainly, you know, things can boil the wrong way in a Facebook or a you know, Twitter or Periscope or whatever it is. If somebody's putting something out there, that's when you can have this Arab Spring type of thing where, you know, this is the way masses, if that's how masses are getting their information by somebody's cell phone footage that might not have the right perspective on it, then the media has to get in control of it. But at the same time, they do that by blowing it up to be even bigger, like, for instance, the Charlotte thing. I haven't heard a peep from, I'm out in Los Angeles, but not one person from Charlotte has called me or has said anything of like, hey, did you see what's going on? There's probably, I would say, 50% of the population of Charlotte didn't even know anything was even happening, because it really was probably 1 or 2 blocks of a situation. And, you know, that's just the way it goes. But go ahead.
I don't know about over there, but over here it definitely was. I mean, I had another friend who works for Walker Stalker Con. She lives in Charlotte, and after, you know, on CNN that night that they covered all the protests, the very next night they were protesting in like some of the fancier neighborhoods, and one of her neighborhoods was one of them. And then when my dad went to the Panthers game this Sunday, they were protesting. They were trying to not, like, to refuse people entry. They were trying to block the entrances to the stadium. But I don't. By the way, so I was working yesterday, so I didn't get to watch any sports and stuff. But did they cover that part in the media, or did they decide to, like, well, that's, you know, the NFL, we don't want to, like, because the NFL is a giant, one of the bigger ones, one of the bigger players in media. And if the NFL said, let's not make that a big fucking deal. So was that something that kind of got washed under? Yeah, pretty much. There was an article on ESPN that just vaguely mentioned it. Exactly. But then, they didn't receive any media coverage. And that tells you how a media decides what they want to cover. And that was probably a peaceful demonstration versus, let's focus on these windows that were broken over here on this one block by a couple people that really don't even represent maybe what even the protest is about. They clearly don't. Anybody that starts to be violent and start to loot something, those are people taking advantage of discourse. Those are the bad apples that really are like, hey, this is a shot at getting an 80-inch TV. Let's, like, it's a smoke screen. It's like, let's dip in under this chaos and take this stuff. And I hate when that happens. We see that all the time, and then it gets tied into the actual protesters when they aren't part of the protest because they're stealing. That protest had nothing to do with trying to get a free TV, so why would those people be – they're not a part of the protest. They're just kind of using that for their own personal gain. Sure, of course. Why not? Let's go down. It's just like when it's sort of like, hey, there's a let's go to St. Patty's Day party because I want to hook up with a drunk girl and get laid, but you're not Irish and I could care. I'm not really celebrating St. Patrick's Day. I just know there's going to be drunk girls down there. So that's the same thing where like, hey, that guy's not actually celebrating St. Patrick's Day. He's trying to pick up on the drunk girl that's too drunk. You know, it's like the same thing can happen there. But, you know, at the end of the day on all that, you know, when it comes to the police and these sort of itchy trigger fingers, especially say like that one in Tulsa where that cop literally shot a guy who is not at all a danger, you know what I mean? Well, that was just a cop that was a cop that shouldn't have been a cop. That lady was the wrong person to be holding a gun. You know, she
she shouldn't have been holding a gun, and she fucking made a mistake, and then she's going to go to jail for it. But you can't tie that into – they're all different. You can't lump all of these, every one of these ones that have been highlighted. Every one of these situations is completely different with a different person and a different situation with the police and how it has happened. They're not all the same, but ultimately the one thing might ring true if they are happening in predominantly African-American areas or just predominantly poor areas or predominantly areas that have a high crime rate, that these police officers, which a good majority of them are black police officers, like in Charlotte, the guy that was shot by the police officer was black, and there was, several black officers involved in that situation. So it's not a black and white thing. It's certainly a policing thing, but it's not so much of these police need to be retrained or these police are the ones that are bad ones. It's sort of like, well, what is going on in that area that has these police on edge? What are they so tired of day in and day out? They're just, are they overworked? Are they, it's like these are just regular human beings that are trying to earn a living 9 to 5, but unfortunately they're stuck in they're probably in a shitty job. Policing those areas is probably a shitty thing. You know what I mean? They go into a place where they feel that they're never respected, and they're always dealing. When you're a police officer, what do? You pull people over, and you respond to crimes. Your entire day, 90% of your entire day is probably dealing with shit. That certainly is not something that what shocks me the most is they're probably some great human beings, because it's surprising how little percentage come home and beat their wife. You know what I mean? I would think there's an epidemic of domestic violence with police, just because you're bringing this baggage home. But it certainly creates an itchy trigger finger. There is no doubt that there's no doubt that there is a profiling going on, but that profile is defined by working in that, crime-ridden area over and over again. You know what I mean? I know that for a fact only because I have a lot of friends, a lot of relatives that are police officers in the New Jersey, New York area growing up, and I saw the way they acted, and these were some really cool people and some great guys, very loyal guys, but they were just sort of hardened in the heart in the areas that they policed from the actions, from the filth that they've seen, you know what I mean, over and over and over again. That affects the human brain, so it's a two-way street. We need to improve these areas somehow, and I think the biggest thing is I just saw a new clip. I was in a writer's room this week. I'm writing on a sitcom. It's called Louder Milk. It's with Pete Farrelly. He's directing and writing the stuff. So I worked with Pete Farrelly all day, some other really talented comedic writers, and I'll be doing that all week as we're punching up 10 episodes of the script, and they're going to go shoot in mid-October. And one of the writers brought up a new clip that I think is fresh today. I don't know, because he just said, oh, here's one, where it was a black guy shooting the police with his video camera, not a gun. He was I don't know, I started in the middle of it, so I don't know why he was pulled over, but he's standing. The guy's telling him to, put the phone down. And he's like, and the guy's talking back, I have every right to film you. And he's like, no, put the phone down. And the guy's standing out of the car. And then he was reaching and grabbing his Bluetooth earpiece too, which can be seen in the video. And there's 3 black cops, but it's 1 white cop, and the white cop has this gun drawn in this guy's face with his hand on the trigger. And from that perspective, that cop shouldn't have his hand on the trigger. There's probably nothing wrong with pulling your gun, but I even think that's a little extreme. But the fact of the matter is, when you watch the tape, the guy that's shooting, and he's African American, the guy making the video, he's just talking and talking and talking back and not listening and arguing. And I just don't get that at all. Like, why would you even say one word to a police officer? Like, that's a disrespectful thing. It's when, no matter what is going on, if you're getting pulled over, if you're getting pulled over for a right reason, for a wrong reason, if they're even coming up to you, you just say, yes, sir, no, sir, and you answer their questions. And 90% of the time, especially if you're not a criminal, it'll work out. You know what I mean? Like, if you just do what they tell you and you put your hands on the dash, put your hands on the wheel, don't move until they tell you, don't talk back. This is stuff that I don't understand. I see over and over again on those clips, except for the one in Tulsa. Most of the other ones, the people are jittering around. They're either digging for something, in their glove compartment. They're rambling. They're not answering. They're talking over the cop, or they're not actually just being quiet and only answer yes or no. Just answer yes, sir, no, sir. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't know. I mean, when I get pulled over, I'm always yes sir, no sir. But I do have friends that are African American who get pulled over way more for no reason, and I guess at the end, they just kind of get fed up with it because they get it so much,
I know they
and
get fed up
sometimes
with it,
even like yes sir, no sir still winds up with them on the ground.
No, but there's nothing wrong with being on the ground. Do they end up going to jail for something wrong they did by doing yes sir, no sir, and getting handcuffed?
No, not really.
Well, then they live through it. You don't want to be shot, is what I'm saying.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's
I'm just saying,
for nobody.
be smart. The number one thing is not to be shot. It's not to. I don't care what the cause is on both sides, but let's just be frank and say your number one defense is not to get shot, and say, okay, what's the quickest way to fix this issue is yes, sir, no, sir. Go ahead and take me down. Go ahead and take my pants off. Search my ass. I didn't do anything wrong. And then deal with it after. They're going to have body cams on them. Once it's all done, then just find your local, somebody that is local authority, or go right into the police department after that and say, hey, this guy pulled me over. This is what happened. You have it on the dash cam, and I was mistreated. So, it's better for you to go that route than for you to be just a name of somebody that's on a YouTube clip getting shot. So you got to be defensive. There's no doubt that if you don't take the perspective of that police officer is your daddy, who's your daddy? You know what I mean? Who runs you? Who owns you? They own us. That's what they put on the badge. We pay the money. And if they're misusing that, well, that's another thing. But until, that's not my position. My position is, they are the authority. I'll let them stick me in the butt. I'll let them put a glove up my ass, and then I'll take care of it later. But when that guy has a gun and a badge on, well, then all right. And then I want, if he did something wrong, then he doesn't deserve that gun and badge, and we'll figure out how to take it away later. Plus, I like a glove up my ass. One time I was arrested in New York City for hitting a cop car. I pounded on this cop car that was double parked, and I had to get to David Letterman, and I was late for David Letterman. And you can't be late to be on David Letterman, so I fucking was slamming my hand on them. Motherfuckers, move the car. It was a taxi, wasn't going anywhere. And they you get back here. And then one guy went and grabbed my hair and goes, "What are you, some sort of comedian?" And I was like, "Yeah, actually I am, and I'm late for my spot on David Letterman." and then so the guy was double parked in front of a precinct. So they brought me right in the precinct to book me, and I don't remember what it was. It wasn't inciting a riot. I forget what it was, but maybe it was assault on a police vehicle or something. And they put me in this cell. And, they took my prints. They had to run my stuff. And, of course, believe it or not, they actually got me through fast because they did know that I had to be on the show. So they still had to book me, you know what I mean? And but they had some fun with me because they got a transvestite hooker they arrested a transvestite hooker around the same time. They put she in the cell with me, and then they made that person strip down, and they anally searched that person in front of me while I was like being handcuffed. It was like, so they definitely, they tried to like, they were trying to basically piss on their territory in front of me there, They're like, oh, you did this to us, you hit a cop car, well, you're going to get a little bit more than what you expected in here. What else is going on? I did not wrap my secretive film. I have one more day on Wednesday. We lost the light because we were shooting a dusk scene. It was the last day on Sunday, which seems like 5 days ago, but it was yesterday. And so I'm hoping we can. The problem is there was 4 actors in it, and everyone's going their own ways, and people have schedules. So now it's turned into that thing of, well, when can we get everybody back? What's, trying to line everybody's schedule up. And so I'm hoping, last I heard was Wednesday could be a good time to shoot this, but I'm definitely keeping my options open to them for Wednesday, because I'd like to shoot the scene and wrap out of this movie while I'm still in LA, working on this other sitcom thing, and I can step away. We don't start work on this other show until noon, so I heard they're going to shoot something like at 8. It probably won't go more than 4 hours, so I'll only be like an hour or two late that day.
Oh, okay. Well, so like you've been pretty busy for sure.
I will be.
I'm glad,
your
voice is back.
Can I say? Yeah. Did I do the? I didn't do the podcast because my voice was shot. Correct.
Correct.
You didn't. Did I talk to you on the phone, or did I just?
No, you texted me. I didn't hear you with your voice blown out.
Yeah, I think it was either Friday night or Thursday night. One of them was really particular bad. Then it kind of started coming back. I probably came back on Friday night. Yes, it did. It was somewhat back. And then Saturday I rested as much as I could. And then Sunday it was still rough. Today's probably the best it's been. But I think it was a Wednesday night in the movie. I had several screaming sections. 2 of them were screaming because people were dying, and it was me screaming, no! And then the other one was I sort of play an idiot in this thing, and I'm getting our location away to the killer because I think it's help coming for us, and it's like, because the thing I do in this film is I am the one, I'm that idiot jerky guy that it's like, oh, this guy, as soon as you see me, he's like, this guy's getting it. I can't wait to see his major death. And I do everything in the book that is the setup for the killer to come and get you. You know what I mean? So when everyone's running back into this, into the safe area where they've locked themselves in without giving the film away, and I'm yelling, we're over here, help, help, and I had to take that several times, and it's just tough to yell, especially at 2 in the morning when it's bitterly cold out here, because we're shooting out about 40 minutes outside LA, up in the sort of wooded mountainy area. So it gets, I wouldn't say it gets close to freezing, but it's in the high 40s probably. And by 3 or 4 a.m. it might be, low 40s. And to be yelling, at the top of your lungs and not work your way towards that, to go from 0 to 100, that's when you really screw your voice over. And because we're working nights, I was doing a lot of Red Bulls, and the whole Red Bull is not good for your voice because there's so much caffeine and other herbs in there that just, stretch, tense up your muscles a lot, and your vocal cords are muscles. So yeah, that's why I couldn't do it, because I wanted to make sure I had my voice, because the next day I didn't have much of a voice, and we still had to yell, and we're going to have to ADR that section for me because my voice was just sounded like Peter Brady, just all cracking up and stuff like that. So I would say this, that Pete Farrelly's writing partner on this, the producing partner on this show, I think his name's Bobby Morton, or Bobby Mort maybe, and he was a writer for the Stephen Colbert show. Pete asked me what the movie was, and I seemed like such a jackass going, yeah, I can't say, it's sort of top secret. I signed an NDA, and, there goes that conversation. You know what I mean? Like, oh, well, and he was just like, okay, screw you. You know what I mean? I'm like, why did I even say that to him? I should have told him everything. What do I care? You know, he's not going to go and blab it, you know, and it's like for me to talk. And I'm like, I can't say, sorry, Pete. Like, oh, my God, what a bad thing to say. And but it came up again, and I said, oh, I can't say. All I can say is it's this, this, and this. And I gave one hint. It wasn't a hint, but I said something. I listed something about the film because you know it's a sequel, right?
Yeah.
And I said one other thing about it, and Bobby Morton goes, oh, let me try to guess. Let me see if I can guess. And I go, okay, go ahead, thinking like, how is this guy going to guess, right? And he guessed it on the first try, and it kind of blew my mind. I'm like, what the fuck? And he goes, no, I heard the director mention something about, and it was the other little hint. No, it wasn't it. I didn't give a hint. I accidentally let some information out about it that sort of put a date stamp on the franchise, and he knew from a previous interview that the director gave. And I was like, oh, shit. And he goes, yeah, they do a good job. You know, it's like, but I guess that's a good thing because now he's like, oh, wow, you're in that. So.
Yeah, but I still have no clue. I went through all of my stuff, and I have no clue.
Well, here's the thing. I should tell I'm going to make sure the director does not add me to the IMDb because I'm one of the more high-profile actors in it, and I believe that, especially if anyone, you know, once you see who the director is, once you see what he's done, then it's going to be easy because you're going to go, oh, what's his big sequels? You know what I mean? So, so that's why I'll probably tell him not to add me to the IMDb. Because at some point there will be, I believe, an IMDb, but it won't be the legit film. You know what I mean? So.
It'll be kind of like what they did with Blair Witch for the longest time, where it was called The Woods. Okay, I got you. Yeah,
exactly. And they're kind of following that model. In fact, when he told me, we're going to keep it a secret until this premiere, and we're going to do it at festivals, et cetera, I thought it was like, oh, that's a cool idea, blah, blah, blah. And then, only 3 weeks later did the Blair Witch one kind of come out and go, we're not The Woods, we're Blair Witch, and et cetera, et cetera. And I'm like, oh, in a way, is he sort of, okay, he's mimicking that in a way, which is a good thing, I think, because when you know what the project is, you're going to see how there are some similarities of the mimicry in that thing. So I think that's
hopefully, I'm hoping it'll do a lot better than the Blair Witch did.
Why? What did the Blair Witch end up doing?
Well, it did, review-wise, it did great. Critics and fans alike liked it, but it kind of flopped in theaters. It didn't make a lot of money.
I'm on my phone. Are you on?
Yeah, I'm on mine right now as well. I can't pull it up, but I remember seeing a couple of articles that it didn't make barely anything at all. It apparently flopped really bad.
You think it made like $15 million or $4 million, or because if it's like a $30 million or $54 million, that's pretty good.
I don't think it made that. I'm assuming it made back its budget. I mean, because they didn't have really any names in it, and
I don't think they gave those guys budget. That was the from the guys that did Your Next, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think they gave them a whole bunch of budget. That part of the thing of being a low budget horror director is when you deliver something that's fairly good, or if not phenomenally good, going, wow, you made that for $300,000. Well, nobody runs out and gives you $15 million at that point. They go, well, now can you make this one for $600,000? You know what I'm saying? Like they want you to repeat what you're already doing, and then you never get out of that low budget hell. If you're actually really good at doing that, well, unfortunately, you sort of killed yourself in the foot. The only thing you can do by being someone that's very good at delivering something at a low budget is to try to hop genres. Or if you're making a lot of money in one genre, then stay in that genre, but you got to own it. The key to the thing is figure out a way to self-finance then at that point and own your product, because that's the only way you as the artist or the director is really going to fulfill and make the work worth it with your payday, is that you're the one increasing and recouping like the riches from it. If you're just a director and it's a big company giving you very little money to go deliver some high-profile, high-end products, you're not going to see any of the money. So all you're doing is making them richer and making life hard on yourself by continuing to go through your favors and your bridges and your hard work. You know what I mean? This project is not, is definitely falls in the spectrum of not a high budget movie. And, it's like a 15-day shoot that's all night and it's grueling and people are working really hard on it. And they're certainly under-rewarded, including the writer and director, for all their hard work and services. So hopefully, at least at some end, that the director and the producers at least hopefully maintain some ownership or have a big chunk of it so they can at least get their rewards. I know that for me, I'm not going to see anything else, but I'm doing it because I love the filmmakers. I love the script was phenomenal. I love the franchise is pretty dang good. And I just think it's in the horror spectrum, and that services me for continuing to build my resume in that area, because you definitely have to sort of niche out areas for yourself. And I think obviously I'm relatively, qualified in the comedy area, but now I want to start sort of building more of those dominoes, stacking up my chips in the horror realm, because I believe that it's a great area. They're just some of the most loyal and fervent fans. Because it's at this point, unless the only way to really get in a quality comic book hero film is by being inside the alleyway of major studio alleys, because they're the studios are the ones making quality superhero movies. I'm not in a studio system anymore, really, in terms of that. I'm in comedies. I can definitely, be considered for studio comedies in some way, but most of those X-Men and Avengers are not really considered comedies. Those are sort of considered action. That list of names and the actors they get, it's a much deeper people that have major inroads into the studio system at that point. So that's probably not going to happen. Certainly, I recognize that there's major fans there, and those obviously are fervent, great fans, but it's not really an avenue that's available to me. So I'm on a business side of myself, definitely looking to capitalize off of building more horror cred so that I myself can start to get my films off the ground. As you know, that Halloween Party 1986 that I'm looking to make, which I owe a rewrite on. I just got a rewrite from another screenwriter. Did a great pass on it, and he offered up his services. I can give him. Should I give him a shout? I can.
Yeah, you can. Feel free.
Well, it's a guy named Ken Hanley, and he's the head of Fangoria, and he did a pass on it and really punched it up great. And so, but I while I was waiting on his pass, I had like 4 or 5 new sort of set pieces I wanted to add to it and sort of massage into what was already existing. But right now, I don't have the time. And because of the other current situations in my life, like trying to finish this home and doing some of these other, already sort of turnkey, hey, can you come and work on this? It's not really a priority because I don't want to have the script completely ready to go. I can't actually put in the time, the energy, and what's sort of necessary for me to really get behind it with my own sort of push and my own energy to get it made. I'm not ready to do that because if I send it out to somebody and I give them some crazy email or phone call like, man, I want to make this movie and I believe in it so much and please help me make this movie if you can help me find funding, because not in a position, if they call me in 2 weeks saying, I read your script and I found some money, can we shoot in 3 weeks? Because I won't be able to shoot in 3 weeks, and that wouldn't be good. You know what I mean? Because you're pretty much going to burn that bridge a little bit. The guy's going like, dude, I went out of my way. I got you these investors. What do you mean you're not ready? You know? So I have to really be in a position to go, I am in it to win it. You know, you say go, and I'm ready to make this film. So it is definitely a priority of mine. As soon as I finish and clear my plate of certain personal things, then I'm definitely.
I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I you sent me one of the earlier drafts, and I thought it was great then, and I can't wait to see what all has been changed. I know you said a lot has been changed, but I thought it was great back then.
Did you read the version that had Ranger Rondell and Ranger Randell?
No, I believe. Well, I don't know. I think they were still Ranger Ron.
Yeah, no. They're now like these inner city African American cops that have, like ran from the crime and despair of the inner city, taking these jobs as park rangers, thinking that it's just going to be nothing but fishing and eating sandwiches out of a cooler and, you know what I mean, spreading their legs in the fresh air and stuff. And it just happens to be that they've just plopped themselves right into, the biggest murder spree that's ever happened. And it's like, motherfucker, you know what I mean? Like, so they've got fishing rods with them and stuff. They're thinking like this is going to be a vacation. So it's kind of funny because they want nothing to do with it. They're just like, this is bullshit. We didn't come out here for this. So it's a funny role. And I have I don't know whether that's going to be Key and Peele or that's going to be like Ken Foray and Tony Todd, but it's going to be some guys that are going to really bring those two characters to life and will have a relationship with each other outside of the screen already. You know what I mean? I'm going to find a couple guys that can just take the roles and run with it improv-wise, So.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so you're a few drafts behind because that was actually 2 drafts ago. But then Ken's draft totally – because one of the things from his perspective as being the guy that runs Fangoria is he's a major expert on horror films. And so he really peppered it with things that are more concise to the genre and to the fans that are fans of that genre more than myself with my knowledge. I don't have an encyclopedia knowledge of all these horror movies, but he did. And so he was really able to bring even more of that into the film, which is great. You know what I mean? So, and I think what's exciting about that is any time that I can increase the enjoyment of actual true horror fans into a horror comedy, that's sort of what I'm gunning for with this anyway, because we've made scary movies and did the haunted house movies, and those movies are spoofs of horror movies, but they don't really speak to the nuances and sort of the inside jokes that actual true diehard horror fans are looking for, So I do feel like that's the market. That's sort of the niche market that I'm trying to niche out with this one. Is I'm actually making this comedy almost more for just the horror fans, and hopefully it's funny enough to broaden out to a broader audience, but I want to make sure that I hit a certain audience very hard. So.
Well, that definitely makes sense, and I can't wait to read the newest draft eventually.
Yeah, man, we're covering a lot of business here. I feel like
I know, and we haven't even got to, like, what I've been doing the last week.
Well, what have you
been
doing for the last
week? Which obviously hasn't been, well, at times it's not has been exciting, but, I did FanFest Orlando. And that was
when was that? This weekend or last weekend?
I believe it was last weekend.
Got it.
Yeah,
and you said there was some Walking Dead. There was some Walking Dead people down there, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Who was that?
They had a lot. Lauren Cohen, Maggie, and Melissa McBride, Carol, Jordan Woods Robinson, Ross Marquand, and. Yep. And I feel really bad that there's actually 2 news items related to Ross Marquand we'll get into. We'll get into the sad one first.
Why do you got to start with the sad one first? I guess that's good. We can move on to the. Well, he's a friend of the podcast, obviously.
Well, see, you know what? And I'm making the choice to go with the sad one first because I did the opposite when I brought this up to Ross. Because my camera guy because like on the show, his character Aaron collects license plates.
Wait. Before you say anything, you're not going to do any kind of crazy spoiler alert, are you, or anything like that?
No.
Okay.
No spoilers. But the camera guy, who you also know as D. David Davidson, had brought Ross a license plate because, like his character on the show, he collects license plates in real life. So we started with that, and he was Can you
clarify this then on that particular subject? So did he bring that aspect to the show with his character, you think, or did he start doing the collecting after the character was introduced in the show, and he said, I'm going to start doing that, or was it just a coincidence that his character did that and he did it?
I think it was just a coincidence. Okay. I'm not 100% sure. I do know that he did do that before he got on the show.
I don't
know if they wrote that in, though.
I'm never really in a position to find license plates, but I collect all of my license plates, from cars that get totaled, or when I move from another state, I usually just I'm taking this license plate. You know what I mean? I'm not going to turn that license plate in, et cetera, et cetera. So, I definitely collect license plates, but I only do it just to be like a James Bond kind of guy that if I ever need to be secretive, I've got a few license plates lying around that I can swap out really quick on my car, and kind of just so, cameras don't catch my car license plate.
So to recap, license plate, he was very excited because he didn't have a South Carolina license plate.
Okay, and so D. David Davidson gave him a South Carolina license plate.
Yes.
Is that correct? As a gift. And where did D. David Davidson, a man of many aliases, a man of many means, and let me just, jump to it. Where the fuck did he steal a license plate from? Because that's just what D. David Davidson would do. What kind of no good motherfucking thing did he do here? Did he take it from his grandma or something like that? It never drives anymore. What? Come on, what really happened?
No, well, he totaled a car, and he kept it.
Probably.
And then
what was his front seat covered in chocolate and wine bottles? I bet it was.
I don't know. That would be a very good question to ask D. David Davidson.
Yeah.
But
so
Ross was pretty excited. Yeah, he was excited about that license plate because he didn't have a South Carolina one. And then I told him the news of Vernon's passing, and he started tearing up.
Right. I thought he knew about it because I've looked at Vernon's, thread.
He knew,
and I saw that Ross, gave some good support and shout-outs, and, I would have figured he would have.
Well, Ross has been, Ross signed a shirt, and when they did Walker Stalker London.
Yeah, London, right. He met him there.
Yeah, he did everything free of charge for Vernon, pictures, autographed everything, and then he shot a video for him that I sent to Vernon as well, and he knew that he was nearing the final days because he retweeted his GoFundMe back when the last weekend he was alive, but when he passed, I had just messaged him about that, so I didn't want to let him know then. So it was about a week later, I'm down in Orlando, and I finally tell him what's going on, and it devastated him. He was pretty distraught over it. We're working on something really great to help out with his family, though. Ross is going to get more of the cast members, like Lauren Cohen and all them. They're basically kind of like a massive tweet of that link out all at once so it can reach the most people.
Well, let me know when that goes out, and I'll try. I've tweeted already, but I will do that again, too, just to support them as well. You know what I mean? So if they do something, once that goes out, I would like to get that out there because, I've never actually met Ross. I've obviously seen interviews with him, and and seen his work. But from seeing how he interacts with people and just seeing his work, and I'm talking about his comedy work and stuff, and I could tell he is a soulful person. He's a true soul, and just a very real person. And so I feel bad that he doesn't really have any other way but to feel connected to people like Vern, because he does feel the pain of other people. This is one of the things that happens with performers like himself, and I know quite a few of these artists, and I'm not particularly one of them, although I have my moments, but I work a lot with actors, with real actors. I'm a hybrid. I'm a writer, actor, producer, director. You can't be that nice of a guy when you're a producer. You know what I mean? You're actually ripping your friends off when you're a producer. You're trying to get your shit done as cheap as possible. You can't wear just the artist hat. And there are people that wear, the thoughtful artist hat that they were given, a lot more. Like, that's true to his being a lot more than in his mind. And he's definitely, when you open yourself up as an actor, to hit those emotions on screen, to be able to get these doors open quickly. There's techniques that actors use to open these doors up quickly. They're almost like Stargate, you know what I'm saying? And once these portholes in your emotions are trained to be opened for you to freely access for performance purposes, well, unfortunately, those doors are opened a lot easier with every other aspect of life, and this is why a lot of actors have a lot of emotional problems, and they're always like, yeah, fucking actors are crazy. They're an emotional wreck. Well, because they've trained themselves to open these doors on camera, to tear up, to cry, to get mad, to get angry, get totally frustrated, whatever they're tapping into. Well, they're tapping into real emotions. The ones that are just like someone like Ross, who's really genuine on screen. The reason he's genuine and the reason that it sells is because he's feeling those things on screen. But at the same time, when you're opening up those synapses in the brain and you have these doorways open, they don't shut. They're not things that are like hardened and they're not secure anymore, and therefore they're very susceptible to all of the outside realities of life that we all know is fucking shitty. What happened to Vernon is fucking shitty. Could happen to anyone. You know what I mean? Or people having, being born with birth defects, or starving people over in Syria getting bombed. They're just innocent people over there caught in the middle of all this shit, or little girls being dipped in acid by, for what their belief systems are or nothing. You know what I mean? And people like Ross, like antennas, are sponges to these emotions, and it's very difficult for them. You know what I mean? They feel these things genuinely. And the good news is, for someone like him, the best way to deal with the fact that you're susceptible to feelings and susceptible to emotionally being attached and feeling what other people are feeling and feeling, connected to them, is motivating yourself to do something to help other people, because it's certainly not only is it helpful for those people, but it is helpful to their own core and their soul. You know what I mean? Otherwise, if they lock that down and don't act on it, that's not a good thing. That leads to a lot of those actors with substance abuse problems or drinking and stuff like that, because they're not funneling out these other outside emotions that have been opened up through the doorways that are hitting them. And instead, because actors also have to have a certain amount of selfishness within this industry, because it's a self-aware situation. To be an actor, you have to be self-aware, and therefore the world, let me give it an instance. I'm not with my family right now. I've been shooting this movie. I'm staying at a friend's house. I haven't even seen the family that I've been shooting with, because I get up and I go to the set, and I come home and I go to bed. And it's been all me time. You know what I mean? It's me time when I'm sleeping. I get in the shower. I'm shaving. I have to look good. Lord, hey, look the best Dave Sheridan can, but I have to, like, make sure that I'm well slept because I'm going to be on screen. So that's a selfish act, well, I got to make sure that I look rested. I got to make sure I look good for the screen because I'm getting paid. The director and the producers don't want me out drinking all night. You know what I mean? They want me to, like, look, they're paying me to look like I'm awake and aware on set. But then all day, I'm, just like I'm chatting all about myself right now. It's a selfish thing. But when you're susceptible to all those emotions, but yet you're already generally into a self-centered, and not in a bad way. I'm not saying self-centered in a bad way. I'm saying self-centered in a sort of, that is your position. That's your job, is to be centered on yourself to perform. And, a lot of these performers that you see, whether that's, you know who they are. You've seen tons of actors with depression issues or drug addictions or alcoholism or whatever that might be, like a Charlie Sheen that you think is just, well, that guy's a complete jackass and he's just selfish and he's just acting out and living off life. Well, the other aspect could be that he also is very susceptible to emotions from an outside perspective, and it sort of keys him into what drives him into depression, into his drug addiction, into his own anxieties. And certainly the easiest way to avoid that is through service, is through pushing that energy back out so that you don't go in depression because you feel like, well, I did something to help. But on the twist side of that, and this is what I'm getting to, is that is still a selfish act, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's better than being depressed and doing drugs, but it's a good thing that you've recognized, how can I selfishly help myself from not being depressed, from not being exposed to these emotions that will cripple my soul? Well, I got to go out and help people, because that's honestly the key to everyone, you know what I mean, in life. To any addiction that anyone else has too, is like, you need to replace that addiction with positivity, positive actions, because that addiction is there. It's always going to be there, in that void. You can't just cut it out. There's going to be a void there. You got to fill that void with something positive, and you got to really dive into that positivity. A lot of addicts and stuff start getting into working out really hard, and you want to do something that's sustainable though at the same time. A lot of people have relapses because they got some sort of substitution thing to fill that void that they can't sustain. Just like diets. Some diets can't be sustained, and you can lose this weight and you're going to rubber band again and give up because it was more of a starvation diet, or it was too extreme of a diet, or it incorporated crazy amounts of working out. The only diet that's going to work, and because they throw that word around diet as if it means you're cutting something out. You're not cutting anything out. The diet is your diet, meaning that is your recipe, that's your regimen, and it should be your diet for life. The only diet you should ever go on is the one you plan on sticking to for life, that sustains yourself, and eating right. That's the only one you're ever going to lose weight on and sustain yourself, is just basically for filling up on high fibrous foods versus high caloric foods that are the cheap calories. You know what I mean? The chips and stuff like that, things that are quick calorie boosts, those burn out quick. But going back to Raw, so I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, and it was kind of, yeah, it was like I felt like shit, because I was like, man, he just got here, this is the beginning of the day, and it's already going to be a heavy day, because granted, they're all there raising money for the families of the survivors of the Pulse nightclub shooting, but then they're also meeting some of the survivors. And he probably met some of those people already, right? Yeah, he did. He got to. So, but like, so I'm saying he was already teed up. He already had a big serving of emotions. You know what I'm saying? It's sort of like you're just piling it on. It's tough. but we did end it on a happier note. We did once again get to talking about Doug from Ghost World, and how he's absolutely in love with that character.
I could see Vernon liking Doug too. Vernon seems like the kind of guy that would like Doug, and if Doug had a further adventures, I could see Vernon. Vernon's the type of guy that seemed like he was the kind of guy that would like that story.
Yeah, like Ross is in love with Ghost World, that movie. But and I was telling him, because we had talked about it on the podcast before, how you had written that script when you were younger. So to
Yep.
follow up with that, but then you'd gotten older and you're like, oh no, I can't really play that role anymore. And he started listing all these ideas. He's like, oh my gosh, you could do this, and then he was listing the names of actors that he had seen. He's like, oh, they would make a great Doug. One of the guys I remember him listing was the guy from We're the Millers. I don't know if you saw that, but the one with. Actually, I don't know if you saw We're the Millers, but he was also in Sex Drive. He was one of the two.
He's a very close friend of mine, and I'm staying at his house. But yes, his name's Mark L. Young. Yeah, Mark. Yeah. Mark is somebody I definitely. Yeah, I just saw him the other day. Mark's a great guy, and I have him in mind for because you read the other one, Cush and Duber. I see him as Cush in that role. Yeah, I want to put Mark in everything. I think he's genius. But I do see, he could be good. You're right. He could be great. And he's a very good actor and a close friend of mine. That's a good choice. I'm just going to have to sit down and talk with Ross about it someday then. And
he actually, I can help you connect with him if you want. He wanted me to tell you that he would be interested in helping however he could with that. He also is willing to come on the podcast. Here's
the thing, just to let you know where that script is at, is I have a version of the script that I wrote solely on my own, and then the guys that wrote Sex Drive, who I'm staying at their house right now, Anders and Morris, and I'm actually staying at John Morris's house, but they don't live together, but they've gone on, when you're saying, hey, meet the Millers, that was their film, and that's why Mark was in that film with them, because they love him, and we're all in this, circle of friends together. Play tennis and hang out, pool and stuff, and they've done a lot of movies. They just recently did Daddy's Home, and they just finished Daddy's Home 2 as a script, and they're waiting on a start date for that. But from Sex Drive to We're the Millers, Dumb and Dumber 2, the list goes on. Horrible Bosses 2, just a lot of films. And but they did a draft. At one point we had it set up. This film. At one point was with Mike Judge to direct, and then Richard Linklater was producing it. Then Terry Zwigoff was going to direct it, and that is how I got into Ghost World, because Terry Zwigoff was going to direct the feature of the character. And then when it didn't go, Terry's like, oh, let's go and do it. Why don't we have Doug come to Ghost World? You know what I mean? And then these guys, the guys that did We're the Millers, they were set to direct it, and they did a draft. And Matthew McConaughey was on board to produce and act in it, and we sat in a room with Matthew for a month. And the funny thing about half the people that have been involved, they've all been out of Texas. They've all Matthew's a big Austin, Texas guy, and Mike Judge and Richard Linklater. So there must be something that really connects to a lot of people in Texas on the character. Because when we brought it to Matthew, I think he must have had it through either Mike Judge or Richard Linklater. When those guys brought it to Matthew at the meeting, Matthew had 3 scripts behind his desk that he's kept there for, because this thing went on for this was 2008, and we were developing this movie in 1995. No, I'm sorry, 1997. So that's almost 11 years. And when they came in to pitch Matthew the script idea, he said, wait a second, and he had 3 scripts on the back of his desk. And he goes, that's one of my favorite scripts ever. I kept it on the back of my desk forever. Here it is. And it kind of blew my mind. I'm like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? That script is just sitting there in his office. It was one of his top unproduced scripts that he's always liked. So, it says something, because it's not a comedy. It's a big heart-tugging drama, although it is really funny. But the Anders and Morris guys, they did a draft, and they tried to bring it into a bigger studio level. And there's some great stuff in there, but there's stuff that I would pull back on because of just being able to afford it. At this point, I don't think if we were to go raise money, we couldn't afford what they wrote. But there is two versions, basically, that need to be edited together, and it's going to take some time. You have to read both and really detail what you're going to take and pick and choose from the two different versions to sort of meld together a cohesive script. It's not something that can be done haphazardly. It's going to take several passes of reading it and fine-toothing it and editing it the right way so that the tone doesn't get too, calico, in a sense, too much of a, common, I don't know what you want to call it, potlucky. You know what I'm saying? Because that's one of the issues that happens a lot with major studio comedies is so many writers do passes on these comedies that when you see a movie and you go, yeah, there was a lot of funny scenes, but the story didn't quite hit. Well, that's because there was 7 writers, and by the time you get done that, nobody's going through. They don't have that one editor that's going to, a story editor that's going to go through going, hold on, I know this scene is funny, but does it really fit the tone? Does it really speak to where the character's motivation is on there, et cetera, et cetera? But I believe that someone like Ross would probably respond to the idea of making the script as good as possible, and going, if he liked, I guess the bottom line is if he's a fan of Ghost World and he liked Doug in Ghost World, then he's probably more of a fan of bringing the Doug story back towards what that indie level Ghost World vibe was in the first place. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. Yeah,
So,
and he's definitely interested in helping out and doing whatever he can. He wanted me to tell you that, and
that's great.
Yeah, he's we can get him on the podcast anytime. He's definitely raring.
I would be into that. I'm a fan of his. The funny thing is, he does a great Matthew McConaughey too.
Well, yeah,
so
he does. He does. I don't know if you've seen some of the videos online, but he does a terrific impression of pretty much everybody. But the one you haven't heard is he does a great Doug impression because he recited most of your lines down there because he's it's pretty impressive.
Well, yeah. I'm gonna have to sue him for that though. That unfortunately, but we'll work that out before we start working together. Yeah, that part's gonna have to be a settlement. He's gonna have to pay me some money. But other than that, can't wait to work with him. No, the character I play in this movie, which I cannot mention, but I'm sort of like this wannabe actor guy, and basically I open up with like a series of impressions, and they're real staple impressions like Jack Nicholson and John Wayne and, who was it, like, Nicholson, I already said, De Niro, it's just fucking. And then there's Christopher Walken, but my Christopher Walken, they're all really bad kind of on purpose, but also I didn't really, I guess if I really sat in front of a mirror and worked on it, but, I've never been one to do the best impressions in the world. I will give you that. I do a pretty good Macho Man Randy Savage. I don't know if you ever saw that.
Oh, yeah, no, you do a perfect Macho Man.
Yeah, I could do, and I could do like maybe Reagan or Henry Kissinger. There's definitely characters I can do, but I'm not a chameleon where I can definitely do a bunch. And these ones weren't like the greatest ones, although the John Wayne one's pretty easy. It's like, all right, Pilgrim, let's get a move on. Like that's easy to do. And then the Nicholson one was like, wait till they get a load of me. Those are easy to do, but the Christopher Walken one was supposed to completely bomb in this film, so it really sucked having to do a terrible Christopher Walken. So that was kind of funny, because in the impression I actually say my name's Christopher Walken, and they're like, who is it? And I go, it's Christopher Walken, but it's like You know, I don't even know how to do them. It's like, it's me, Christopher. I don't know how to do it. You know, it's like, Christopher walking in. I don't know how to do him. It's fucking, he seems like such an easy impression to do, but I can do him probably from, what was that one James Bond movie he did? View to a Kill?
I do not even remember that, yeah.
James Bond.
You kind of sound more like John Malkovich.
I sound like John Malkovich. I don't even know what John Malkovich sounds like. That would have been good. It's me, Christopher Walken. And then they're like, what's that, Christopher Walken? No, John Malkovich.
But yeah, so I just got to get back to Ross. You know, I guess when now that your schedule's getting ready to die down a little bit, well, at least your time should be a little open in between doing the other things. I'll let Ross know, and we'll bring him on.
All right, yeah. Oh, for like a legit interview.
And then also our podcast had its first rap beef this past week, which is pretty ridiculous. Apparently there is a rapper named Chief Keef, and he tried to file a copyright claim against us on YouTube. And in the first episode, it starts with the scene from Scary Movie, the What's Up scene. And that's how our first podcast started, and then it goes into the theme song or whatever. Well, apparently this rapper, used that exact scene from Scary Movie as well, but he tried to copyright it so he would get paid off of it. You know, and he used your voice and Marlon's, and then he used Marlon's throughout the song too. And it was just a horrible, horrible song, but I got that shut down really fast. Because I assumed that he didn't, you know, obviously have any rights to it. And when I called them out on it, due the legal process on YouTube, they dropped their claim against it. So I shut that down really fast. But I was like, this guy's trying to make a buck off of everybody. Like, 'cause he copyrighted the scene, like the actual scene that was from the movie. And I was like, well, first off, Dimension/Miramax owns that, so I don't know how he's trying to claim a copyright on that.
Well, that's crazy. Well, so
needless to say, we won that.
So who else did you get to interview while you were down there?
I didn't get to interview many people due to just how crazy it was. It was one day, but I did get to interview a WWE wrestler by the name of Neville. And the interview that we'll be playing on this episode is going to be Brianna Hildebrand, who was Negasonic Teenage Warhead in Deadpool, which you still have not seen.
Yeah, you know what? I'm not going to get to it this week because actually when we're wrapped here and we get to wrap soon, I'm on this TV show. I got to basically break down 2 episodes a night and note them up. And then I'm also pretty much playing all the characters in the writer's room as I read them. And so I gotta be a little prepared, as they say. So someday, I would say that I did the movie with a couple comic book aficionados. One is definitely very famous for being a comic book aficionado. He makes his living, for the most part, being a comic book aficionado, and he's got his acting debut in this film. And the other lead actor guy was really in it, and all they did was talk about all those movies. Everything. Oh, did you see that one? How about it? You know, all they did was complain about where the X-Men movies have been going, and they didn't serve this character well, and blah, blah, blah. And I asked them, you see Deadpool? Of course they saw it, because they see every freaking movie somehow. I don't know how they have time to do it, but so that was kind of funny, because they saw that, and I go, oh, did you guys see that one? They're like, yeah, what'd you think? And I was like, nah, I didn't see it. They're like, why would you ask? It's like, just checking. Just want to check it.
Yes,
I'm the only one
who's
seen it in the world.
It was kind of funny how it worked out, though, because, you know, this was one of her first major roles, but, like, she's younger than me. So, and I was in this very weird middle ground because you don't know about Deadpool, really, and you haven't seen the movie. And then I was talking to her about the podcast, and she's like, I've seen scary movies, but I don't remember the people. I don't think I know who he is. And I was like, oh my God, I'm like right in this little middle section where I know, like both sides, and it's just like, oh man. But it was still kind of funny. But she was really great. She's like really young. I think she's like 22, 23. She was born in the late 90s, so she would have only been like 4 years old when Scary Movie came out. So that probably explains why she doesn't remember it too well.
Hey man, I don't really mind. It's 16 freaking years ago. I mean, there's definitely people that I work with people all the time that have seen the movie, and they didn't even know it was in it because it's so long ago. Even on this cast, a couple girls had to go back and watch clips of it, and then came in the next day going like, oh my God, you were so funny in that, I forgot about that. And I'm like, well, how do you, it's a tough one to forget for me, obviously, but not for other people. They're going to forget it. So now I've moved on to forgettable.
No, now it's like everybody remembers you more, it seems like, especially when other people, like if I introduce myself in like Dave and Creech show, I introduce myself, then I'm like, Dave, like they usually don't pick you from Scary Movie. I'm noticing more people though, like oddly, even though technically I guess Doofy was the bigger role, like they're either Doug in Ghost World or like the one I'm hearing a lot recently is Devil's Rejects. I was like, well, I didn't remember. I mean that one's like that one. I guess is now the main one that everybody's remembering. Well, that's my biggest draw
at convention is the Devil's Rejects, just because it's sort of a fan favorite, and I mostly do the horror conventions, so.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Dave and Creech Show. I'm here with Brianna Hildebrand, who you remember as Negasonic Teenage Warhead in Deadpool. First off, thank you for coming, and thank you for agreeing to do this interview.
Yeah, of course.
First question is going to be, obviously Deadpool did amazingly well. Working on the set, obviously Ryan Reynolds is a very funny guy. How hard was it to keep a straight face and not react to some of the stuff that he was saying or performing?
It was pretty difficult most of the time. I think the only thing that made it easier was the fact that he was wearing a mask, so I couldn't actually see his facial expressions, and I knew all of the lines beforehand, so that made it easier. But other than that, yeah, there were definitely a couple of times that I broke when he was like in my face, and I ruined the shot for everybody. So.
And also, thankfully, Deadpool did amazing well. I know they've already said there's going to be a sequel. Mm-hmm. And how does it feel to be able to come down here now that Deadpool shot you out there in the stratosphere, and be able to do something great for the LGBT community with coming for do this charity event for FanFest?
Yeah, it feels amazing. It feels super rewarding. I just actually finished working on another film called First Girl I Loved, which is like a lesbian love story, and it's like super personal to me. But yeah, I got this invitation to come here, and I was just like, of course, yeah.
All right,
so I'm excited.
And lastly, like you just said with that movie, is there anything else you want to promote that you've got coming out, or where can anybody that's listening follow you?
Well, First Girl I Loved comes out October 18th in select theaters, but it's also available on iTunes. And then also I have a film called Tragedy Girls coming out sometime in 2017. It's like a horror comedy movie. So, yeah.
Those are always the best. Well, well, thank you again for doing this interview for us, and hope you have a great day here in Orlando.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
Well, I appreciate your time, Creech, connecting with me, and I appreciate everyone out there that will be listening to us blither in some ways. I know I went off on some tangent. Hopefully some of it made sense, and I'm fine if it didn't make sense, because it makes sense to me. And you got to get up to my level, I guess, people, or get down to my level, or just enjoy it. Enjoy the nonsensicalness of it all. And other than that, hopefully things will continue to even out in my own life, where we can make this show, getting it back to sort of some progressive formatting and, things that will be worth listening to. If you found some of this not worth listening to, we will try to improve on that. If you enjoyed, some of it. I'm glad. And thank you for being our friend. I felt like Mr. Rogers there for a moment, you know.
Right. Also, I know this
Don't
is
forget
a
to take
really
your vitamins, people.
Yeah, this is a really like way 360 from Mr. Rogers, and I should have probably mentioned it at some point in there, but you should definitely check out our Twitter page because the new Strip Club Massacre trailer is up, and I am featured very briefly in it. So
I'm gonna have to go check that out and repost it. That's awesome. I didn't know that.
So yes, it is up now, and it's
any word on the premiere then?
It's very soon. I don't know the exact date. I know that's not an official date there, but expecting probably within the month, like
probably
within October,
the 20th
obviously.
Star Wars comes out, maybe. I know it doesn't take a lot of time to make those Star Wars films, but they'll probably make like 7 Star Wars films by the time I get to see Strip Club Massacre. And I got to tell you, they're both up there. They're both up there as the I want to see them. So
exactly. So yes, that I forgot to mention that, but that is up on there now, so everybody can check me out in my first official film role.
Hey, speaking of Walking Dead, which we really weren't speaking of, but when does it start up again? Like the end of October?
October 23rd. Fear ends this Sunday. The 2-hour finale.
Have you watched any of the Fear? I mean,
I have not.
I gotta maybe. Yeah. I might next week when I get back. I'm gonna go into my player and see if any of it's still watchable because I think on the demand thing, I think they start to delete some of it. So I don't know what I'm gonna have to do. I might actually have to go to Amazon or something and actually pay for like the season and watch it someday because I actually like the show. But I just haven't. I've been buried and haven't had time. And have you heard any inklings of cast members of Walking Dead that are clearly not shooting the show anymore or anything like that?
Not recently.
So there's no confirmation of anyone that might be lost.
They've been pretty tight-lipped on that.
I did tell you in the last one, I think, that the producers. The money producers of The Walking Deceased have basically given a go-ahead to go make Fear the Walking Deceased, right?
Yeah, I remember that.
And what's funny is, on this film I just got done shooting, there's one actress that looks a lot like Lauren. Is it Lauren Cohen? Is that her name?
Maggie?
Yeah, the one who plays Maggie?
Yeah.
There's an actress on this that's like, could definitely play her in our spoof, and then there's an Asian actor. I can't give his name away because that might tip the hat a little bit, but he could be a good Glenn too. So I spoke to them about it, and they were on board. So I think it's going to be and there's actually an African American actress, and she is a phenomenal talent, and we're going to have her on once we can sort of expose this film. And she's a Broadway actress that's won numerous Tonys, or a Tony, and she's just a ball of talent, and she could actually play Michonne. Is that how you say the character's name?
Yeah.
Yeah, she could probably do that role pretty well. So I'm going to start collecting names and numbers, but I'm not going to write this. I didn't write the last one, so. But what I'm going to do is just send the IMDb's and the pictures to the other parties that are sort of trying to put the sequel together, and just pitch it out there saying, hey, I can get this actress for this role, I can get this actor for this role. And hopefully they'll write something funny for them. So, 'tis what it is. Well, again, I wanted to sign off and thank everybody for listening to the Dave and Creech Show. Until next week, stay alive, people. Remember, don't talk back to cops.
Shut up and sit down.
Thank you for listening to the Dave and Creech Show. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of Dave and CJ. These views and opinions do not necessarily represent those of Creech Creative Productions or any of its affiliates.